was going to say Weight Loss Wednesday, but it's not a Wednesday at all. It's Tuesday, but I thought I'd jump on anyway. First of all, I'm going to want to thank everybody again for helping me get to 1,000 subscribers. It's allowed me to now stream via my phone, which has made life so much easier. Previously, I was having to just live stream via my laptop. The camera wasn't great, sound wasn't great, angle wasn't great, it just wasn't great. YouTube must have changed how they do things, and they've made it 1,000 subscribers, and I can do it from a device. So thank you all so much. So I'm going to try and do more and more live content to give you lots of free advice that can help you. So today's lesson is all about how to lose weight. Now, whilst that might seem like an ambiguous kind of goal, it's like, how do you lose weight? Well, that's a huge subject. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it as if you're going from ground zero. Now, if you've already lost weight in the past, or are already fit, healthy, and further along that stage, then as you hear the stage that you're at, you would then continue on with advice from that point. I'm going to take it from absolute ground zero. So if you've never ever lost weight or don't know what to do, I'm going to break it down to its simplest form. And then with all these hints, tips, and advice, they're all designed to build habits, and habits are the key. First off the bat, before we get into the actual set advice and things to follow, is do not change too much too soon, right? Now, we know why this happens. I've fallen into traps like this. I'll sit there one night and I think to myself, I want to get in better shape. I know what I'll do. I'll get the pen and paper out and I'll make this big movie montage worthy program that's got me training twice a day, eating lettuce and doing all this stuff. I think, this is it. And you almost get a buzz from it because you think, right, I'm going to be super focused. I feel good. I feel great. And 2 or 3 days in, you get tired, you get stressed, you get exhausted, and you don't stick at it. So don't do that. And if you've ever done that, don't be hard on yourself. I've done it too many times. You'd think I'd learn, but I would strongly advise you don't do that. The key thing is anything you start, it needs to be something that you can maintain. When you maintain it, it's literally, and I don't mean to belittle anyone here, but it's time and effort. When you've got some good solid habits, which we'll discuss, it's how long you can maintain those habits that will get you to your result. Now, you will hear of shortcuts, you will hear of things that get people there quicker, 100%. But in my experience, and I'm talking about myself here in terms of what I've physically done, the quicker I get there, the less time I stay there. I've noticed that in my own lifestyle, the longer I take to get to the goal is because I've then taken nice, steady changes. And when I get to the goal, my life is just a series of tasks and routines that I'm able to maintain the goal without too much thought. So really focus on the habits that you're going to create. So first things first, if you're starting from ground zero, my advice would be clean up your diet, right? Now, one of the things I promote is health and happiness. So it's getting a balance and understanding that in life we want to enjoy ourselves here and there, but ultimately we also want to get to our goal. So the nice way of doing that is that if you are fairly good Monday to Friday or Sunday to Thursday, depending on how you want to slice up your weekend, it allows you a little bit wiggle room on the weekend to relax and have some, not many, but some of the things that you may be abstaining from in order to get to your goals. And your first port of call is to cut out processed food. Now, there's levels to this, of course there is, because there's lots and lots of processed food out there. But I mean the very obvious things. Stay away from snacks and junk, first and foremost. You want to try and start preparing your own food if you can, or as much as possible. But clean up the diet. If you've got sugary drinks in your diet, or sweets, or things that shouldn't really be there, that treats and all things that make us feel great, if they're in the diet, clean them out Monday to Friday. That should be your absolute first port of call. Clean them up. Secondly, you would then want to look to hydration. Now, I know that hydration is really, really important, don't get me wrong, but cleaning up the diet makes you feel wholesome first, and then you can start building on your hydration. Now, you want to be trying to drink at least 2.5 litres of water per day. Now, that's, I believe, 82 or 84 fluid ounces for those in the US, right? So where possible, you want to be trying to get 2.5 litres of water in per day. Now, you do get hydration through your food. So this isn't something I want you to be stressing about. But what's measured is managed. So if you then look at your hydration and realize that you're only drinking 1 litre a day, There are a lot of processes in the body that are very, very important for your metabolism so long as you're fully hydrated. Now, knowing that we're going to increase movement and discuss exercise in a moment or two, you know your demand for hydration is going to go up. Therefore, you want to make sure you're at least getting to 2.5 litres. Now, there are slightly more complicated processes because there's lots of coaches out there that encourage you to drink even more amounts of water. But it's important to remember, I'm telling you what the minimum is, right? If you want to drink above and beyond that, then what you want to start thinking about is ensuring you're getting enough electrolytes in. Now, electrolytes are important for muscle contraction, cell function. Now, if you live in very, very hot environments and you're sweating a lot, there's a chance you could lose a lot of electrolytes. So we don't really need to worry about that in Scotland. I'll get enough electrolytes in my diet. But if you live on the west coast of the States or even in other hot climates and you're sweating a lot, you might want to be thinking about getting some sort of electrolytes or Himalayan rock salt for your water. Also, you've got to be mindful, again, online you might hear people talk about drinking more water, drink. Now, you remember that if you start going really, really high with your hydration, you will start to dilute the electrolytes in your system. So that when you get into the realms of 3, 4, 5 litres of water per day, now if somebody gets up really early and they're in a very hot climate, they might drink 3, 4, 5 litres of water per day and they'll feel wholesome because they say, oh, I drink loads, I'm constantly drinking water. But then you do have to be mindful of your electrolytes if that's the case. Like I say, in Scotland, we don't need to worry about that. If I'm drinking 2 to 2.5 litres of water per day, my fruits and vegetables give me the electrolytes I need. If I was in a warmer climate, I might think about putting 1 electrolyte tablet in a drink per day. Good rule of thumb, if you don't experience cramp, then chances are your electrolytes are in balance. You don't have to worry. Cramp is one of the first signs to say, whoa, your body's electrolytes are usually out of balance and therefore you'd have to address them in some shape or form. If anybody ever needs help on that, just drop me a message and we can obviously discuss that further. So, clean up the diet, number 1. Increase your hydration to 2.5 litres of water per day. Your next thing, again, I'm taking you from ground zero. You want to then increase your movement. So there's lots of ways to do it, but I'll keep it really, really simple. Track your steps, right? Our smartphones or watches can track steps nowadays. What's measured is managed. What you do initially, rather than going off too fast too soon, as I said at the start of the stream, you don't need a moving montage worthy routine. What you're better to do is look back, because your device will have been tracking you. Have a look back at what you've been doing movement-wise. You might be down at 1, 2, or 3,000 steps. So then you have a look at what you've been doing, and then you make a conscious effort to increase it, right? You want to increase it in a way that you're going to feel good about it. Now, if you're doing 1 or 2,000, it's quite an ask to jump up to 10, because 10,000 steps is quite fashionable, right? But if you've only been doing 2,000, that's quite a jump, and it's probably too much of an ask. And you'll maybe get it done a couple of days, and then the lifestyle changes too much. You won't stick at it, and it'll be yet another one of those things that you know you should be doing, but you're not. So my advice is, if your steps are way down at 1, 2, or 3,000, add 1,000 steps on, right? Add 1,000 steps on to what you're doing, and then be like, right, great. And then every time you hit that, you'll get a dopamine release in the brain, making you feel good that you've achieved something. So at the end of each day, you're looking at it like, great, I did it again. Then every week or every 2 weeks, again, you go at your own pace. You can address this. You can have a look at it and say, should I up it again? Should I up it? And track it and build it, and then you can start looking at things like your monthly average or weekly or yearly average and all that good stuff. And you can build gradually, right? It's not a race. Remember that these habits, if you start building on them and you look back over 5 weeks worth, you've moved more. So all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm moving. I'm using more energy than I was previously. You're moving away from bad habits and towards good habits, and it will pay off. So clean up the diet, get the hydration up, get moving more. Once those things are in place, then you do want to start addressing the exercise front. Now, that can seem quite daunting at first, because if you've not exercised before, again, I'm discussing this as if you're completely ground zero. Miss you, Rabbi, keep up the sensible practical life. As always, thank you. Yeah, if you've never exercised before or haven't exercised in a long time, your perception of what a workout is might be quite different. So for example, when I was in college, I had a lot of time to train, and at that time I was trying to build myself up and being a posing little twanger, right? Or more of a posing little twanger. Now, basically, back then, I used to finish college and I was in the gym for like 2 hours, right? I mean, to be fair, fanning around for a lot of it. But my point is that later on, when I started working full time, I went through a period where I didn't go to the gym because in my head, I didn't have 2 hours spare. And then I had to recalculate things and say, well, wait a minute here. If you redefine what a workout is, suddenly you can make time from it. Now, if I'm being completely honest, my workouts now, in terms of resistance weights, take me about 20 to 25 minutes a time now. And that's what factors in for my physique, and it does this. Now, depending on your goal, you might have longer and you might enjoy training for longer. I'm not saying that you can't train for an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it is you want to do. My point is not to be at the mercy of what the perception of what a workout is. And especially if you're starting off fresh, or you may be coming back after years of a layoff or whatever it may be. Sometimes just picking one exercise and doing a whole bunch of sets on it will really get the muscles working. Now, the reason you need to get the muscles working is tenfold, really. So first and foremost, it's going to add to movement, right? You're lifting weights, you're exerting yourself, you're burning energy. Great. Secondly, when you challenge muscles, you break them down. And your body has to build them back stronger and repair. It costs your body quite a lot of energy to repair them in the days after your routine. Muscle is also very greedy, right? So to have muscle on your frame costs your body quite a lot of calories every day just for it to be there. So the more lean muscle you have, now I'm talking lean muscle, we're not talking posy, twanger, always bulking up kind of muscle. I mean, just in general, the more lean muscle you have on your frame, the more calories you need. I lose more weight faster because I've got more muscle than I did at an age when I had less muscle. It's as simple as that. The same acts that I do moving around uses more energy. So you want to be making sure you've got resistance exercise in. And that goes above and beyond all the benefits to weight-bearing activity and preventing osteoporosis. There's something else that exercise does, which is a real magic for a weight loss journey, is that when you exercise, the main body fuel source is known as ATP. And when ATP goes down, one of the byproducts is AMP, which is adenosine monophosphate. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. And I use the analogy of eggs. If ATP were eggs, you're cracking a bunch of eggs into the pan. So the eggs go down, but the eggshells go up. Right? If you crack eggs into a pan, you get a bunch of eggshells, right? When that happens, there's a big enough ratio between them, the body releases something known as AMP kinase. Now that's when the body becomes catabolic, because AMPK, AMP kinase, is like a hoover. It comes to collect all the shells, if you like, but it stops fat storage and maximizes fat burning so long as there's that ratio. Now this is why it's easier to lose weight when you're doing resistance exercise, or easier to burn fat, my apologies, is because you are creating that ratio and the body becomes catabolic. So you might have heard trainers or coaches saying, when you exercise, your body becomes catabolic and you burn up calories for fun. That's because of that ratio. So every time you sit down to do your workout and you're not quite feeling it, you know what you do? Just get those muscles burning, get them pumping. And when they're pumping, guess what? Oh, hi Donna. When they're pumping up and they're burning, you've likely created that ratio and you're going to be in a catabolic state. Everything you do for the next couple of hours after that in your day, you're going to be burning calories at a much higher rate. So doing resistance exercise is fundamental to losing weight overall. Okay, so let's summarize again. Clean up your diet, so get rid of the junk. Drink more water, move more, and introduce some resistance exercise. Now, as I said at the beginning, depending on where you are on your journey, you might have a bunch of those things in place. Okay. So if you are, you're thinking, well, what's next, Coach Rap? Well, there's a couple of other tools that come into play, and I stress that these are tools because there's lots of different ways to lose weight. There really is. And you've got to find the one that works best for you. The one that works best for you is the one that you can follow consistently with the least amount of stress. Why is stress so important? Well, you get two main types of fat storage sites, right? You've got your subcutaneous fat. I mean, you've got adipose sites too, but let's just keep subcutaneous, which is under the skin. And across the middle as well, you get what's known as visceral fat. Now, visceral fat is also known as hormonal fat because it's triggered by two key hormones, right? So if you hold weight across your middle, which when my diet's not great, that's where mine goes too, right? When you hold weight across your middle, it is caused by the two main hormones, insulin, which means we need to address carbs. Now we know that carbs, we'll get to that, sugars, basically a sugar belly is one of the causes. But the other hormone that's culpable for weight across the middle is cortisol, the stress hormone, right? Now, if your life is really, really stressful and you're not doing any mindful techniques or stress management practices to reduce it, doesn't matter what you do, the chances are the belly won't go down. I've had lots of clients in the past that have had big life events, maybe exams or coursework or job stuff or moving house. They're eating great as always, they're training as hard as always, the belly doesn't shift. They finally complete the thing that was causing the stress and the weight falls from them. It's that powerful. Cortisol will really hang on to stuff across the middle. So the key to finding the best diet that works for you is the one that reduces or doesn't create as much stress. Now, case in point, you get things like keto diet, right? Now, I'm not against keto. Scientifically, it works really, really well, but for a lot of people, myself included, it causes a lot of stress because I miss my carbs, right? So for me doing keto, I get quite stressed after a period of time. But there are other people out there that can follow keto and love it and get great results. But if that particular diet plan causes you stress, nothing will budge. Okay, so you want to keep in mind that whatever your diet plan you're following causes the least amount of stress. Okay, so Josie, that's me, Mr. Stress Fat. So although you want to find a diet that follows the least amount of stress, you want to make sure you're doing mindful stress practices. And one of the key ones that I promote is silent therapy. Silent therapy is scientifically proven that if you get earplugs in or noise cancellation headphones, get yourself into a quiet room, lie on the floor, shut off all sound, because remember, sound is noise pollution, believe it or not. If you close your eyes, you'll cut out the light. Again, that's external stresses. And if you lie completely still and somewhere comfortable, for a minimum of 20 minutes, it's been shown to lower your cortisol levels. Now, there's lots of other mindfulness techniques and relaxation techniques that you can do to lower cortisol levels. But the key thing is that you're doing something. Because unfortunately, when it comes to your stress levels, too often, we don't know we're stressed until we're already stressed out. Let's be fair. When you've already blown your top or feeling anxious or being irritable, that's when you're already too high. So if you put these practices in place, whether it's breathing techniques, reading a book, taking time out to do the things that you enjoy, when you do that, you will feel better, you'll lower cortisol levels, and your results will definitely flow. So that was a big long waffly way of saying is the diet plan you choose needs to be mindful of stress, and I did a bit of a segue to pull in some stress management techniques. So these next tools I'm going to discuss is a little bit of fasting and carb management. These are tools because you can mix and match and adjust them, and there's different methods to each. So first of all, we will discuss carbs because that's the buzzword, right? Now, carbs are not necessarily the enemy, but for a fat loss goal, they have to be managed. Now, carbohydrates get broken down into sugars. The faster those carbohydrates get broken into sugars, the faster that sugar gets released into the bloodstream. The faster the sugar gets released into the bloodstream, the higher blood sugar levels go. Now, high blood sugar levels is not good for the capillaries, the nerve endings. It actually damages our body. So the body's response to that normally releases insulin into the bloodstream to push the sugars out. Okay. Now, to keep it nice and simple, insulin is a builder hormone. Okay, it's designed to help you grow. That's why the big bodybuilders take insulin, and that's why they eat regularly to maximize and build themselves up. If you're trying to shrink down, you're trying to limit the amount of times insulin is abundant in your system. And in society today, unfortunately, foods are laced with sugars that a lot of us are becoming insulin resistant. And that happens because we're constantly taking on sugars that our body becomes resistant to the insulin response, so our body has to release even more insulin to get it to do its job to lower blood sugars. But regardless, your carbohydrate intake has to be managed. Okay, keep them on a leash. If you're somebody that goes down the keto route, well, you've got that covered. One of the things I usually promote is one source of carbohydrates a day. Now, not all carbs were created equal. You might research things called complex carbs, and then you've got simple carbs, which are your sugars. Okay, the complex carbs take longer to get released into the system, so it creates less of an insulin response. So if you're going to have one source of carbs per day, make sure they're complex. Simple sugars get into the blood faster, create a higher insulin response, so you want to be managing that carefully. The number of meals you consume in a day will also have an impact on insulin responses. So the old thing of eating lots of little meals creates lots of little spikes is not great if you have a fat loss goal. And that's want to be very clear, because there's lots of nutritional advice out there and it's all very, very sound, so long as it aligns with your goal. And this, the performance goal nutrition, overall health nutrition is not always the same as fat loss nutrition, because what I normally say, if somebody wants to lose weight, get the fat off first, and then you would go for a wholesome approach to overall health. Case in point, things like fruits. Fruits and always vegetables are great, but fruits have lots of vital vitamins and minerals in there, but they also have sugars in the form of disaccharides. Therefore, if your goal is fat loss, you wouldn't want too many fruits in the diet while you're trying to get the fat off. But once you're there, then you could bring these fruits back in. So as again, you need to make sure that your diet is in alignment with your goal. So managing sugars, I would recommend one source of carbs per day. There are other things you can do with carb cycling, where you do periods of lower carbs and then you bring some carbohydrates in and all this kind of stuff. There's merit to doing things like that because of the fiber aspect, and fiber is non-digestible carbs. So you do need some carbs in there because fiber is important for binding to fat to get out of the body. But ultimately, your carbs need to be managed in a way that you find acceptable and gets the result you're looking for. So carbohydrate management. Then we want to talk about fasting, because fasting is quite the buzz thing, isn't it? You know, and ultimately it's like, right, some people do longer fasts, bigger fasts, all this kind of stuff. There's lots of different ways, and you've got to find the one that suits you best. Now, historically, I used to do an 18-hour fast. So on a Sunday night, I used to have my last meal around 6 p.m. and then I wouldn't have I wouldn't break or have breakfast until 1 o'clock the next day, give or take. The reason I used to do that was a Monday used to be my busiest day, and basically I would get up early, I'd go to work, and before I knew it was lunchtime. It was the easiest way for me to do the fast, and that worked out being about 18 hours, and I got really, really good results with that. I know there's people who do 24-hour fasts and all this kind of stuff. But what I found was even better, and then was backed up by research, is known as time-restricted dieting. Now, time-restricted dieting is when you have a fasting window and a feeding window. And the one I would promote is you have your last meal around 6 p.m. at night and you fast through till roughly 6 in the morning. Now, the reason you want to take advantage of that is there's lots of hormones that are floating around your body, but there's two key ones that affect your metabolism at set points in the day. In the morning, serotonin is one of the many hormones that come in to lift your mood, get you going, get you started on your day, and fires up your metabolism. So it makes sense to be having some of your calories early on in the day when your furnace is burning brightly, if you like. Later on in the day, there's a hormone known as melatonin, and it comes into the system to help you wind down. Now, melatonin is one of those supplements that some people take if they're struggling to sleep. Now, whilst in the short term, that might be the answer. Sometimes messing around with these things can throw you off. But regardless, when melatonin comes in, it slows your digestive system down. So eating late is not always great if you've got a weight loss goal. And again, I'll reiterate, it's all to do with what your goal is. So if serotonin and melatonin come into play, having a fasting and feeding window. Now, when you think about fasting, people think about not eating and they get into a bit of a tizzy. They're kind of like, oh, fasting, not eating, and they almost think it's unhealthy. When you keep it nice and simple, if you've got all your nutrition that you're going to consume, you've got 12 hours to get that nutrition in. If you look at animals in the wild, they sometimes go hunting and eat one meal a day, right? It's just that we've had this concept that's been put in place of 3 meals a day, right? And then we've got in the habit of it to the point that if we skip lunch, we're starving, and it's just we feel like the world is ending. The reality is the world is not ending if you missed your lunch. It just might feel like that in the moment because you're so used to it. If you've ever gone through periods when you're really busy, you don't even notice it. My point to that is that the whole 12-hour feeding window is actually quite a long time to get your nutrition in, and your body can remain very, very healthy. But the trick is if you're new to this type of fasting, is keeping yourself busy in the evening and then trying to get to bed at a reasonable hour so that you then, it's less period of time where you're not eating. Now let's just say you have your last meal at 6, you're finished by 6:30, you spend some time cleaning up, tidying up, 7 o'clock. If you go to bed at 10, you've basically got 180 minutes to keep yourself occupied to stop yourself putting anything in your gob. Sometimes easier said than done. But if you do that based on what I was saying at the start of the stream on a kind of health and happiness approach, where you say, you know what, fine, 5 days of the week, I'm going to try and stick to that eating structure, the results will flow. Now, there are other types of fasting, as I said. Generally speaking, the longer the fast, the less of them that you do in a week. So this fast that I've been describing, the 12-hour, now just for the record, the 12-hour, the research backs up 15-hour fast is the most optimum, okay? But I don't teach that because I struggle with a 15-hour fast, right? It doesn't, for me, it gives you a 9-hour feeding window and it's like, doesn't work for me. But the research is backed up, that's the most optimal. So if you are wanting to be one of these people that follows it to the letter, that would be the way you do it. I go 12 and 12 because it's nice and straightforward. You've got a cut-off time, breakfast time, easy peasy, and you get really good results with it. But that particular method, you can do 5, 6, or even 7 days a week. The longer the fast, so an 18-hour fast, for example, you might only do 2 to 3 times a week. A 24-hour fast, 1 to 2 times a week. There are some people who do longer fasts. I don't personally agree with them, but I'm sure they've got their reasons for doing it. But in terms of a fat loss goal, I would recommend that particular type of structure to your eating. Now, with all that in place, we know that there's protein in play as well. And protein is very, very important for repairing our muscles. It also satiates our hunger. And there's been lots of other diet plans that throw around almost like bodybuilding style numbers. But the latest research, in any given day, depending on your body mass, you probably only need 80 to 100 or so grams of protein per day. A decent protein serving is anywhere between 30 to 40 grams. So you're looking at 2 to 3 servings of protein throughout a day, you'll hit target. Now, protein, we have what's known as amino acids reservoir. So imagine a big body of water, and if that was your amino acids, your body's always dipping in to use them to build up, break down muscles and so on. As long as you're adding amino acids into that reservoir on a daily basis, your body will have everything that it needs. Now, there are a few pickles if you're vegetarian or vegan. Not pickles as such, you have a slightly different approach, that'd be the fairer way to say it. Because when I was mentioning earlier about carbohydrates, carbohydrates need to be managed, right? We've said that for a fat loss goal. Now, if you're vegetarian, a lot of your protein sources will have carbs in them too. Now, if that's the case, if you're vegetarian, you're thinking, I want to lose weight, you might want to look at your overall calorie consumption of the day. Now, whilst you don't want to get too specific about exactly how many calories you're burning or consuming, even if you reduce your overall calories by 10 to 15% a day, then that will get things moving. Because again, calorie deficit is another way you can approach your weight loss journey. One of the easiest way to reduce your overall calories is to reduce the plate size. If you've got a particular plate size that you always fill, grab a smaller plate. Subconsciously, it looks like a full plate. You fill it to the best of your ability, and then off you go. So that is an approach I would recommend for vegetarians. Vegans, if you're following the more vegetarian approach, I don't promote the vegan fake protein processed stuff. I think that's counterproductive. But if you're into that, then more power to you. I can't really say anything because there are processed things I would eat. But if I am on a health kick and trying to do better, if I was vegan, I would lean towards the vegetarian protein sources rather than getting some of these specifically made plant-based labels stuff. So, but again, if that's you, you could then potentially follow the protein target, and you can get supplements that can help that are both vegetarian and vegan protein powders that can help you get to that target too. So to summarize the whole thing, I've taken you from ground zero. Now obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but ultimately if you didn't know where to begin, you'd clean up your diet first, get rid of the junk, at least 5 days of the week, right? You make sure that in your head, you're not doing anything that you cannot sustain. So you're not making a movie montage worthy routine. You're just saying, look, I'm going to make these changes, and 5 days out of 7, I'm going to be fairly strict. And on the days off, I'm not going to think about it, but I'm not necessarily going to binge either. You're going to get your hydration up. I mentioned that you only need to get at least 2 to 2.5 litres per day, which is around 84 fluid ounces. Get that in the bag. Then we mentioned moving more, okay? Most devices will track steps, so whether it's a watch or your smartphone, have a look at what you're doing. You don't have to go crazy. If you're at 2,000 to 3,000, add 1,000 steps on, you're going to do more. And then you make a conscious effort every 1 or 2 weeks to increase your steps up until a point where you think, yep, I'm quite happy with that. If the results are flowing, then if it's not broken, don't fix it. Then you want to introduce the exercise. Remember, I explained the benefits of working the muscles, making your body catabolic, and not just the energy you're burning at the time as well. The only thing I haven't really touched on today is cardiovascular training. That falls into slightly similar category to movement, but you get steady state cardio where your body gets into kind of more of a fat burning zone. We can discuss that in another live. But ultimately, if you get all these things in place first, increase the protein, manage the carbs, use things like fasting as a tool for the days that you can do it, that will get the weight moving. And the last thing is to be honest with yourself, because I've worked with people in the past who will do all that, but then every night they're having biscuits, but they choose to forget the things that are hampering the results. They think, well, I'm doing the training, I'm doing the movement, I'm doing my steps. It's like, be honest with yourself, because sometimes it's the smallest of things that's tripping you up. You make that one change, the results flow, and then the buzz that you get from the results flowing keeps you away from that pack of biscuits that you've been having or whatever it may be. Every now and again, when I go back on a bit of a journey to get a few pounds off, I get a bit complacent. I start off and I feel like I'm doing most of the things I used to do. And the weight's adjusting, but I'm thinking, oh, it's not working. And then I realise, yeah, Rab, because you're having 2 bottles of Corona each night. Now, people say, oh, 2 bottles of Corona. I'm like, yeah, but that's okay if it's on my 2 days off at the weekend. But my 5 good days I've been preaching about, I probably shouldn't have it. I take those 2 bottles of beer out of the equation, guess what? The results play ball. So being honest with yourself, you're trying to establish 5 good days out of 7. If you can be honest with yourself, then you can enjoy your biscuits or Corona on the weekend and the results will still flow. So I hope that was helpful to you all. If you liked the video, make sure, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it. If you've got social media to share it, that'd be much appreciated as well. I'm going to start doing more and more lives like this to give as much free advice as possible. If there's any topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to pop them into the comments. I always like suggestions, because when it comes to these sort of videos, whilst I'm full of it, just a bit. When I'm usually full of ideas, there are times when I think, you know, I can't see the forest for the trees in terms of nutrition or weight loss. I'm thinking, have I taught that one before? If somebody asks a specific question, I can very easily put together a live and answer it on the grander scale, so it's really no problem at all. I can waffle all day about and geek out about nutrition, exercise and weight loss. So thank you all to join in today and who stuck with me. There's quite a lot of you on the stream, so I appreciate it. And if you need any more information about what I do and what I offer, you can go to coachrab.com. And excitingly, we just released the calendar again for this year. So this year was all kilted. So you can go on to, I think I've linked my shop on Facebook and I've linked the proper one on Instagram as well. It's just an Etsy store, so you can drop ship all across the world. So you can get yourself a calendar and mug and canvases and goodness knows what else. So it all helps. Have an awesome day ahead, everybody, and thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.